We're back. Hello. At least 5? Okay. What does he mean by remembrance? What does that mean? Does that mean that Scorpion Lady was a main boss? And if I go do that, or if I try and get that item that I didn't know how to get. Oh, she was a main boss in this for the story. I didn't know. I thought she was just a rando. Also, Snakehead. What does that mean? Snake ahead. Snake ahead. Let's see. Where is that head with the item? It would have moved up. Oh, you cannot see it. You also cannot walk from here. Did it move up or did it move down? You know what item I'm talking about? The one that was like hanging from a thingo's head? Okay. No game sound, right, thank you. I'll fix that in a second. Oh, you got it before raising the things, okay. Right. There we go.
Lord, will I ever make sense of this jumble?
Like, I totally saw where it went. And I definitely didn't pick it up. I think it's down there. Gonna look from down here. Yeah, there it is. Okay. What level is that? The second, maybe. The fourth. Oh, right. That's one where you can't jump off there. This game's a little bit annoying. Yeah, we're back to a ring. No one else is playing Smite 2. No, I wanna go up. Up the stairs. There's another one of these, isn't there? I wanna say it's on this level. Oh, frames, hello? Are we still live? Okay, good. Oh, I didn't hit the live button on the other stream. 1 second. Where's my mouse? Sometimes I paste in the oh, that's annoying. I paste in the key and then I forgot to push the button. Ow. I have no health. No stamina. Here we go. Okay, the head. The head, here we are! I guessed correctly. Oh, okay. That's a useful item. Let's go. A talisman. What is Peldrake? Boost non-physical damage negation. That's cool. Alright, we're ready. I look like I'm now a turtle. Oh, this is dark. Cutscene!
Mongrel intruder.
Mongrel. The mongrel?
That
Oh,
tarnished.
it is literally a snake. With wings? Dragon?
Wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of life? Yet, my purpose standeth unchanged. Those
More of this
stripped
fire
of
stuff.
the grace of gold shall all meet death.
What an interesting character design.
In the embrace of
Wait, is this Mesmer?
restricted the grace of gold.
What is with the popcorn?
Death in the
They
embrace
words.
of
What
Mesmer's
the hell? Well. Okay, that has an explosion to it. Okay. No time to do that. Is this fire? Like, can I use a fire protection? It's not the boss. So it's not Mesmer. Now, I'm not saying the boss, but is this Mesmer?
so restricted the grace of
Like,
gold
when people ask me, have you done Mesmer
in the
yet?
embrace
Is
of
it this guy?
Mesmer's flame.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Okay. I see. Yeah, I have to delay that. I was playing Smite Prelude, but everyone logged off. Smite 2.
Restricted the grace of
Yeah, I don't know if it's because like Final
In the
Fantasy
embrace of
14
Mesmer's
has an
flame.
expansion coming out today as well. I have met Mesmer. Oh, my game crashed. Yeah. Interesting. Does that count? What the hell? Did your game ever crash? Two mods in chat, no wonder your game crashed. That's so weird. It crashed on like loading, in the loading part. Yeah, what else I could do? Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. You never had a crash. Well, that's lovely. Yeah, that's weird. Never had that happen before. Ah, congrats, Lix. I'm back down here? No, don't tell me I have to go get that freaking talisman again. Okay, it's here. Okay, so I don't have to get the talisman again. Maybe I didn't sit at his bonfire, you're right. Maybe that's what happened. But it was the last one that I did run into him. No, I must have, because I fought him a few times and I spawned back here. That's weird. That is weird. We didn't lose anything. Like, this is still here. Alright, delay. It's kind of time to heal there. There is fire everywhere. I really need to put that fire talisman on. I forgot about it. I'm already out of healing thingers.
In the embrace.
Surely I gotta fight the giant snake at some point. That's what it feels like. Don't tell me. Oh, right, the thing. Which one should I use? I don't know if I need the HP one. How's Brisbane being on? Don't let him on you. You've been trying to move this whole time. What are you talking about? So nice. Warm, I guess. Hey Jaylee, welcome back.
Embrace of gold, shadow, death. In the embrace of Messmer's
It would be nice to not be cold all the time. Life is so simple before being a mod. Yeah, what in your life changed after being a mod? Rough boss, thank you. First time. Oh right, he does that. He changed countries. Yeah, and you know, Wildfire changed states, so you guys might have a point. Where are you moving to, Lix? Finish your Tim Tams already? That was quick.
Embrace of gold shall all be dead. In the embrace of
What's stopping you from
Messmer's
setting up your PC? This is gonna take a while. How come I couldn't play more Smite, huh? Okay, I gotta remember to dodge twice at the start. Let's do that at least. There we go. And we have time to queue that up. Oh, that was a grab. Okay, cool. And then a stab, and then another burn. That was a very lengthy grab. Layered, one might say. Ow. To roll into him, not backwards. Oh, okay. Let's roll into him.
death. In the embrace of Messmer's flame.
No, when is the desk due to arrive? Hey, Legacy. Almost 100 times. Yeah, that doesn't bode well for me, actually. Alright, roll into him. No, we're knocking him back. Oh, I know I'll get it, don't worry. Been in this deep, you know. Yeah, someone just moved. So I would say they're trying to build something. Ow. In a long spear. Okay.
In the embrace of Messmer's.
Hey, Germania, what? Hey, Rusty. This might just be the whole stream, like me trying to do this guy. I'm ready to do that. I don't think I'm gonna beat him though. I think it was alright. I mostly just played Elden Ring. My character makes funny noises. It's just the way she sounds. I agree though. And I probably picked it. Yeah. I rolled too early. Ow. Yeah, well, I'm back to work next week, so I'm gonna be doing regular stuff again. So don't expect as many streams. It's gonna be back to like 3 a week. Those stripped of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Messmer's flames. Okay, thank you. You dodge very well, thank you. I know. It always starts the same way. At least that. Okay. The Elden Ring creator sucks in his own game. How did you find that out? Oh, shouldn't have done that. Hey, wildfire. I hope you had a alright day at work. Interview, interesting.
In the embrace of
well, I guess he is making the game, not playing it. You turn the sound off. I've definitely done that with like Souls like before. Like I just play muted for a bit. Yeah, right. Man, this is so weird. That grab sucks. Smoking. I've already had this health bar at 50%, so I'm learning that and not stuff up that one. My game keeps randomly losing frames. What do I have to change?
In the embrace.
Is this going to be my Millennia? Potentially. Maybe I have to restart my computer. Let me check my GPU temps. Computer's been running all day, who knows? See, when 300 deaths. Wow, is that how much you think I'm gonna... Okay, my GPU is running at 42 Celsius, so that's not it. Fortnite new mode, yeah. Thanks for the frames. Dude, garbage run. Couldn't do anything.
In the embrace of Messmer's flame.
Hey, Mayday. Is there anything on his weekend, or is it too cold to go outside? I'm going out for lunch tomorrow and getting a haircut. That'll be fun. And then I have to, like, do some stuff at my mom's house. So, yes, busy weekend. Because I want to use the Dragon Hunter Katana. I don't change weapons for each god, man, unless it's, like, detrimental. Each god. Sorry, I was just playing Smite. Each boss. This boss made me let me solo her, put armor on. What do you mean? Alright. Oh, ow. You swim in the morning? And how cold has it been in the morning?
In the embrace of Messmer's flame.
Thanks, Jaylee. Again. that one. Over 200. Man, Millennial, I had like 131. Ice works good on him. That's cool. I had a good ice weapon before.
The grace of gold shadow death. In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Before. I like how he speaks about himself in third person. Right, okay.
In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
I know I asked if it's Mesmer when it said Mesmer the Impaler, but I didn't know if it was the Mesmer. I don't think that's a crazy thought. They like to rename things like the same thing multiple times. No spoilers, guys, please. No, we don't need help, it's alright. Oh, I rolled too early, okay. Was that new? Oh, I rolled too much here. I'll work on that grab too.
In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Doesn't make me rage those. I'm just an angry person. Hey, Patrick. The name of a boss, I would say. I would recommend beating the full game. But, I mean, you don't have to, I guess. See. Because if you do the... Is it mode? Mode, right? You have to be... I think it's recommended level 150. But it scales to your character, does it not? Alright. That one we can hit. Oh, I did it too early. Nope, that's the grab that I gotta learn.
In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Quests in the DLC or in the base game? You don't know why you have to beat Radahn, but you get to go and clap him real quick. Really? Moog and Radahn? Have you beat Radahn? That's weird. Oh, in the base game. Interesting. I said, I wish you could just learn the moveset without dying.
Mesmer's flame.
That's what I said last time. It would be so nice. Oh, that's so much quicker than you think. Yeah, I like the way this armor looks. I'm quite happy with it. Didn't hold it long enough or whatever it is.
Embrace of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
It's just gonna be this for like a while, by the way. If anyone's wondering. I do wanna learn the moveset before I mess around with anything if I have to. This time. Too much faith. No, it's the grab. I gotta learn. I see him running. Okay.
Restricted the grace of gold shall all meet death.
He is all red, you're right.
Of Mesmer's flame.
Nah, it's just how do you say it? Not it's not new game. I didn't new game my game. Stick dodge.
Restricted the grace of gold shall all meet death.
Let me
In
count
the
the death
embrace
for you.
of
Well, I mean, you can go to the
Mesmer's
the start. I think I am level 10. I double check, but I'm pretty sure I'm level 10. 11. There you go. Not long. I haven't been at him long. Nope, the grab. I don't use guides, no. I gotta not get grabbed once. Why are you riding 22? It's not over yet. Damn it. Okay, now it's over.
embrace.
Oh, really? Nice. Glad you like your new spear then. Hey Renegade, you're a new player here, but glad your grab with the dragon arm got you for way too long. I don't know why, it's so easy to walk into grabs. Thanks Antonio, by the way. Starting to think there's a lot of times when you can use your heavy attack. And then maybe keep everything else a small attack. It is a good weapon, yeah. Sorry, that was a bad run.
Embrace of Mesmer's flame.
I find when you get caught healing, it's over. You finally beat the DLC. Congrats. Like, there's a heavy attack there. Maybe a regular one. Yeah, I ended up respecking for it. I was using an int build before. That. We definitely have time after that one. Yep, got hit twice.
In the embrace.
What new game is this? This is Elden Ring, the DLC. The new DLC. I roll too early. Rolling into him is helping me. Oh, are you asking if I'm playing new game, Paul? I'm so confused. No, I'm not playing New Game Plus. Just the regular. I did New Game Plus my game. I wouldn't have the time. That was quick. Oh, okay, yeah, that's what that is. I have to remember that one.
Channel death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
To be honest, I don't know if I have that great sword, but it's alright. I don't think we're like up to the point where I feel like I need a different weapon. You know how you got this? Oh, you know you got this, thanks. It's like, yeah? How did I get this? He wiped you with 2 hits?
In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Well, we still haven't brought out the summon yet. Which I'll do at the 1 hour mark or something, I don't know. I just want to learn the boss for now. protection. I have fire protection on. What the hell is black flame protection?
In the embrace of
Oh, you're the 3 endings. I just got the Rani ending. I only played through the game once. I tend to, when I play games, I usually only play through them once. It does look like Red Flame, yeah. Oh, it's the incantation. I see.
stripped of the grace of gold channel death. In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Right. No, fire out. Do I have to run? How hard is this compared to Rolana? Currently, it's not as hard as Rolana. Yeah, I shouldn't use that. Yeah, I see the summons on the floor. I don't usually do the NPC summons. I use the ashes, though.
In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Not one of them tell her to eat boiled crabs. Why should I be eating boiled crabs? What? Where's the armor from? It's, Rolana's armor. You just buy it from the round table. The finger lady. No, I'm grabbed again. I have this grab. Thanks, T. Pity. Should I have physical negation? I have the stamina one. Ooh, we roll here. Ah, damn it. No, we know. I'm trying to learn the abilities, like the movesets. Sometimes you're just gonna do mistakes. You gotta learn where it is. Ah, the webcam froze, didn't it? Okay, sorry. I have to fix my webcam after this run. I will fix my webcam. Okay. Okay. I should not be rolling backwards. Okay.
In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
It's the second time today. Yeah, I have the +3 Flame Drake Talisman as well. Oh, not there. Alright.
Gold shadow death. In the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
You get tired counting, Germania. We could just make a point from when the death happened, and then we use maths. Like when the first one happened. No, I have my favorite summon that I will use later. Ow. You know, I'm tired of repeating myself, so I'm just gonna be quiet for a bit. No, the grab. Ugh, I'm always healing myself when he comes out with a grab. It's actually annoying.
The grace of gold channel death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
In the DLC, some NPC summons you need to progress NPC stories. What do you mean? Seriously? That's so troll. And they're like, hey, remember that time we hung out and fought Mesmer? Well, you guys never said that before. Ow. Oh, I thought that was... So now I have to summon the summon. I keep thinking that one's gonna explode and then it doesn't. Hold on. I shouldn't be dodging backwards. My headset's off again.
In the embrace of
I haven't gotten up to the second phase. But I think, I don't know. Someone else said I should be dodging into his attacks. So Ara said this is the first summon where you need to summon him to progress the NPC. Well, I don't want anyone to yell at me for using a summon then. Okay, here we go. I think Germania meant the NPC doesn't do anything in the fight. This is the Dragon Hunter sword. It's a katana.
of the grace of gold channel death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Am I getting better? I know how to do the start bit. Have I been dying at this bit? Oh, now I've stuffed it up. Like, I feel like I haven't stuffed it up in ages. Okay. That's the grab! Oh, I didn't. Not in time.
So strict is the grace of gold shadow.
The grab that I want
In the embrace
ripped out
of
of
Mesmer's
his-
flame.
You have become barbecue chicken. What fragment level? 11. I thought that was the time to use it.
Mesmer's flame.
A Woolies roast chook. Once I bought a Woolies roast chook, I was like thinking, okay, I'm having this chicken all weekend. This is my weekend food. Dude, I got so tired of that chicken. That's not the time to attack. Bro, it was too quickly. This is this thing. And then it, yeah. I don't know why I went for that one. Honest. Oh, that landed on me. Okay.
Dead in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Only 13 tries, huh? I'm at 37. And I don't even think it's that long. How long does it take to summon the thing? Just oh, this thing stuffed it up. I really gotta get better at that thing. You guys are spoiling the fight that I haven't even gotten up to that bit yet. You can make it with so much though. Yeah, but then it was just like chicken, 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 and I got really tired of eating chicken. And it was a whole chicken that I had to try and eat. Chicken noodle soup? Oh, that sounds like way too much effort for me. I am not good at cooking. So when it comes to me and food, I really do just eat because I need to eat type of thing.
The grace of gold channel death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
Allegedly, she failed to chop an onion. What do you mean? Maybe, yeah.
The grace of gold channel death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
That was good. I love the positive people. Ah, it keeps getting stuffed by that second hit. after the slam.
The grace of God channeled death in the embrace of Messmer's flame.
What do you mean you cut an onion for the first time, did he? Oh. You always made someone else do it? That's crazy. Maybe try dodging. Yeah, we're working it out. Oh, I lost frames. That was fun. This fight has made me lose a few frames, and I don't know why.
In the embrace of
It's
Messmer's
so like hello fresh. See, like my fiance knows how to cook, so that's fine. It's just that when I'm making food, I usually go for the easiest thing or the simple thing, especially for me. Yep. Oh, grab already? Went for 2 hits. Yeah, I'm learning things. Okay. Heal, heal. Heal, heal. Heal. No. Don't know why I went to attack. How did I manage to get this to half HP twice? I thought I rolled at the right time, and I rolled too quickly there. I am gonna summon the NPC, but I know I'm not defeating him here. So I've just kind of been running it and learning it first. Like, I haven't gone past halfway through his health bar, so I don't think it's just gonna suddenly happen. Have I gotten the new talismans? Some? Where? Depends which one.
In the embrace
And do it at the same time.
Flame.
Sure, let's try it. The ones I have equipped at the moment are these. I could maybe get rid of, like, this one or something. These 2 enhances my L2 skill. Dude. Did I even summon? Oh, you have to hit yes.
Fall of my beloved people, in vengeance for the flame.
Oh wait, why did I summon Thingo? I didn't have to do that. Oh well. Let's find out what the second phase is. Never mind.
Of gold channeled death in the embrace of Messmer's flame.
It looks like a feather. Interesting. It's a dragon hunter katana. happening on that tile?
In vengeance for the flames, my blade.
Arrow to go. Ow. We just started Elden Ring last week. How's it going for you? Oh, we got a thing for the first time. It had to be that guy. No, I haven't got anything that really buffs in my class. Oop, I rolled too early. The second phase. Hello, Killer John. The anger gets to your thumbs.
Will not suffer.
True. Oh, Renegade.
Devoid of light.
That is such a sad joke. Nah, I'm in regular game. I'm not in New Game Plus. It's the snake's turn. I know
Your
it.
Mother, forgive me.
Why do you need to ask for forgiveness? Oh, I do have to, dodge behind him on his first attack. His first attack's easy to avoid. Oh my god, did he just pull his arm out? Out? Oh. Oh. Why did this happen all the time? Thanks, Slater. Oh! Marika replaced his eye with a seal, so it wasn't his real eye. Snake.
Soon tarnished. Wilt thou be taken in the jaws of the abyssal serpent, shorn of light?
That is so disturbing. I don't know what it is. Oh! Giant snake. Okay, I try to dodge like the other moves and I've stuffed it up. Okay. Stuffed it up.
Embrace thine oblivion, as shall I.
No, he really looks like Millennium. They all do.
Fall of my beloved people. In vengeance for the flame, my blade I wield.
It's the dragon katana. Oh my gosh, that did so much. Okay, well we can skip this now, because we know. Ooh, hello. Oh, I walked in that, I'm an idiot. We don't get the health bar for this guy. No, he's still there. Where is he? Unbelievable. You summoned them. That was a third hit, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, thanks for those. How do I feel about people saying it's too hard? It's hard. Alright, Austin. If you use the skill close enough, both the projectile and the actual blade will hit. Oh, I see. Okay. This does not give you time. It does, but... Nope. Grabbed. What's my accent from? Australia. He does make it a lot easier though. Thought so, but you said American as well. Me? No, I don't have an American accent. I was born in Australia. How'd you poise break him? I think because I managed to get damage on him quickly. Also could have been lucky. Like if I was to get that wise. Oh wait, I forgot about this thing. And I reckon the summon must have a lot to do with the poise break. If I just whack him a few times here, yeah, then we get the poise break. Oh, I didn't get to him close soon enough. Maybe I should get closer. Have I used C front? I don't know if he's backstabbable.
In the embrace of
It's alright, I'm just sticking with this guy for now. I already got close once. Apparently this NPC has a storyline. Grab it in there. Oh, I definitely think it's doing something, guys. He's not doing damage, but there's no way I wasn't able to get his poise broken without him attacking the NPC. I think, like, you're gonna make a compilation of you getting grabbed tonight. Just me being like, oh, the grab, oh, the grab. Because, like, when he's focusing on the NPC, then I can do a bunch of damage and break his poise. It makes a big difference. Yeah, he's obviously not doing much damage wise. Oh, I put it. The grab. Aha! Okay. Second phase. Oh wait, that was his thing? Oh my god. Sorry. What was that? Okay, so apart after that I can actually get another poise break. I It doesn't reset between. Yeah, I didn't expect that at all.
My beloved people, in vengeance for the flame, my blade I wield.
Yeah, I got 11 at Erdtree. I am rolling 10 times. Wait, heal! Okay. The way you get. Okay. And then you do that. Oh, the grab. Okay. Heal. Oh, he died. That's unfortunate. No, I'm out of mana! I rolled too early. Oh.
America.
Ooh.
A curse upon me.
Attempt to not get greedy. There we go. I did the summon because I was told that summoning him progresses his storyline, so I still did it. How many tries was that? 52 tries, 51 deaths. No, you want to end the DLC? Or fight the other bosses? I thought there were other bosses. No, we do more bosses. How about let her explore? Yeah, let's explore for a bit. Oh, we should level up. So that was the guy that they were like, you need to kill Mesper. But you need to kill Mikola, isn't that what they said? Isn't Mikola another one? Yeah. How many does that leave me with? Okay. I don't remember the fire giant. I'm not responding to anything that I haven't done. Yeah, people would like to... Like, I don't know what's after this. I haven't watched anything. I thought that was gonna take me all night though, not gonna lie. Do you know about the Muffin Man? The Muffin Man? I'm using the Dragon Hunter sword. Oh yeah, we should go back and do the dragon, yeah! No, we kill the dragon. We kill him. I can't remember how many I need. If you didn't summon, it would probably take you 2 days. Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe, if I didn't summon. I used the excuse that I wanted to progress the storyline. Did I use the martial arts? No, and I know it's not my thing. I wonder if I put another on endurance. I've been upping my endurance lately because that's been lacking. Alright. The dragon! Oh, the thing goes back! Oh my god, this is so confusing. It's gone all over the place now. Uh-huh. The dragon. I can't remember if it was this one. Or was it this one? Oh no, you go to this one, you go down, and then you respawn on the other side. Right? But wrong way. Why am I going underground? Oh, did you get those graces in the water? Oh, there's like an underground area. You can go through here. Oh, is it not here? Not here. Where the hell is it? No, not here either. Is this the wrong area? Where's the dragon? Oh my god, it's here. Sorry. I'm remembering the wrong place. Yeah. My brain. I thought it was on the ground. It's actually in the mountains. I'm playing too much of this in a short amount of time. I was like, why can't I bring out my horse? I remember being able to bring out my horse. Getting the two areas confused. Alright, well now we have a sword. And the specs to match. The stats to match. Okay. Alrighty. I remember now. Surely she can do it now. Yeah, one would hook. Okay. Have I done anything yet? No. Oh, she's lighting everything on fire. What if you don't do the legs and you focus on the head? That works. Oh wait, that was damage. It does. Not a lot of health. What is it? Is that new? Yeah, I just realized how little health I had. Good luck on your heart surgery. No, we can do it. I fought this dragon before and I kind of failed. So we're back at it again. You hate dragons, understandable. Those are not worth getting. Stuff on it? Interesting. Would the hell talisman be better here than the fire one? Do I have a lighting on? Or are you saying he does lighting, so probably? Okay, he is doing lighting, yeah. So I should probably switch to the lighting on. Alright. Ow. Troll. Forget how many there are. Aha! Well, that was so much easier. I didn't even use my summon there. Look at that. Now, did we expect? That's so different. I actually spent like, what, an hour? Not an hour, probably half an hour on it last time. Yeah, it was. God damn. I didn't even switch the talisman! I was thinking about it. Like, hang on, he doesn't really do fire a lot. So dumb. I want, probably need more. Are you cooked? What do you mean? No. Not finished climbing the mountain. I will. Get there in a second. How much do I need? Hey! This is so time consuming. $5 hours to beat Rolana? I used Tish and it took me like, I remember it was like 3 hours. Hey Dean. Alright, let's climb up the mountain. 3 or 4, I can't remember. I don't think it was that long. Everyone truly has been humbled. Yep. Oh wait, I thought to continue climbing up, I had to be this way. How do I continue climbing up? Do I go back up? No, that's the thing. Okay, we're gonna go back up. I'm an idiot, sorry! can't bring back the map. Oh, there you are. Oh. Man, do you know which direction is up? No. Apparently not. This way, apparently. Oh, it's an item. Okay, it's not this way either. This way. It's gotta be another dragon. To the wrong direction. Ooh. I don't know how I fell the wrong way. We really are scaling the mountain. I'm still doing at it, of course. I did take a break. I played some Smite too, but not many people in Smite OCE were playing today, so we only had a couple of games. Why does this feel like the end of the line? Let's go back around and see. Am I meant to be on a higher thing? Did I jump down accidentally? Yeah, I think I jumped down accidentally. Go back up this way and we'll stick to this platform, yeah. I do interact with chat. Why is that, Jenny? Climb. Oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes I missed it. I can't even see it from here. Oh, your roof setup is really awesome. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I missed it. Woo. I'm normally pretty good with it. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. It's like one of those things where sometimes you just miss the message. You read the next one and then you thought that was the last one that you caught up. Yeah, I'm from Australia. I got the dragon rock heart. What? Jump was annoying. Okay, maybe we'll jump from this side. I don't think I did get the rock heart. Maybe I'm not up to that yet. Melbourne, nice. Get off my horse. Good luck, because you're gonna need it. Oh boy. I don't know, I guess I'm going in with a thing. See, even 300 death. Oh, you can't use this. You can't use your horse here. Too much madness in this place. What's the weather like in Melbourne? Is it cold? It's red. What the frick? Like no dragon I've ever seen. Why is it so thick? Oh, so much faster. Summon Eagle. Is there a summon? Who's Eagle? It's freezing, to be honest. always been my experience in Elden, it's always cold. And I know you guys have hot days, but I'm never there for them. What is that? What? Okay, my other chat's speaking nonsense. Bale the Dread? Wait, is this Bale? Is this what people are talking about? This is what people mean when they say have you fought Bale. I don't know what it is! Why would I summon them? I can't do this on my own? Is it important to summon them? It literally says Bale in the name. It does, but it didn't register. You talked to him 3 times. I assume it's in the arena, yeah. Oh wait, I'm out of health. Well, it's alright, we'll do it next time. You just beat this wrong! This was... okay. It's crucial, okay. Oh my god, the dude who was screaming with no legs! Yeah. You should have just said that. Wow, why give me his name? I'm joking. Ah, okay. 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 Well, he's not really fighting, is he? Where is he? He's over there. Oh, it doesn't give me time. Okay, that is kind of funny, to be honest. Oh wait, I just got eaten. I am literally using the Dragon Hunter sword. Surely this sword is okay. I think he thinks he's got a little bit of an ego because he's got me on his side. Okay. So this is the thing with, like, when I say no spoilers, right? I assumed Bale was the final boss. I have to learn what this is. Does he just say the same thing over and over again? I have a fire one equipped. But maybe a physical one? What do you think? Yeah, Bloodborne. Yeah. Oh, we got 440 already. Okay. Physical one. What's my physical one? This one. We do have lightning as well. Would lightning be better? I don't know if he has that much lightning damage. I don't know! I am kind of risking my run trying to summon him. He's not easy to summon, he's hard to see. Maybe I have to use my bubble at the start. damage? Oh, okay.
Solid of scale you might be.
Okay. Shard of Alexander. I don't even think I have that. Oh, I have that. Belfry Icon. And then I have the Dragon Quest. Great Shield. I don't know what the Erdtree favor is. You died over 200 times to this boss. Oh, really? What's that? Great. This guy is too hard to summon. Why can't I summon him before? Like, whereas with Mesmer, like, Mesmer did the same thing at the start.
You will rue this day. Behold, a true great warrior. Your fear made flesh.
Good Great Shield. Right. I don't think I have it.
Solid of scale you might be, foul dragon.
Why did it sound like he died? Oh god. This is a dragon hunter.
With a
Get
hail
on.
of harpoons. With every last drop of my being.
Yeah, I might try a summon. A mimic would be good, actually. Okay. First time experiencing this. Okay. Oh, summons before the growth gate actually increase the health of the boss. So, the NPCs inside the arena is probably story based. I don't know how I got him. Ow. Dude, oh, I'm out. I didn't realize. I'm an idiot. Woo! Oh my god! What the hell? Oh yeah, I was expecting that. I hit my end of my health. Have I been collecting the Erdtree? Yes, I have 11 currently. I don't know how many there is in total, but we got 11. Or like the level up, anyway. Yeah, he's cool, yeah! Isn't he cool? There's 20? Okay, it's good to know how many there are, to be honest. So I'm like halfway through those fragments. Come on, run! Oh my god! My move? I had a move queued up, apparently. I didn't press that at all. Oh, that sucks. Oh my god, your name is Yalda? My fiance's name is Yada. It's crazy. Almost trolled me for a second. I'm like, there's no way Yada's on TikTok. Yeah, I have his poise broken. I know! And then I couldn't do anything because I got knocked down. I must have hit an attack before I got knocked down. Ugh. This sucks a bit. Really good. Oh, we fought. We just did Mesmer, by the way. Oh, okay. Why does things knock me down? I get knocked down. Are you kidding me? Wait, what?
Bail the dread. You shall haunt
Why'd I get up again?
no longer.
What? Egon got the last hit. You're joking. There's no way. There's no way. I saw him get away with 1 HP, and I was like, there's no way. I can't believe he got it. Yeah, I didn't know he was actually attacking. I thought he was just sitting there yelling. He does use a bow. Well, thank goodness for him. Oh, that's funny. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, by the way. It was just me and Egon, by the way. He did. He actually got his revenge. How poetic that was, actually. Dude, this sword did so much. Did you see that? I didn't even manage to get his poise break. Because I was stuck on the floor. Have I been fighting any side bosses? I have definitely done a few. I'm gonna look twice, yes. That's fair enough. I know. It does a difference. Yeah, it does so much damage to Dragon. It's probably why I broke his poise. I have done side bosses, yeah. The last side boss I think I did was the one with the guy on the horse. Underground. I want to say. I don't think he was core to the story. But there's a couple of bosses here and there that I haven't gone back to because it was too hard when I got to them. So I just figured I'll do them later. Like, in the open world, they're not necessarily locked behind a oracle gate. Go back to the Dragon Communion place? Okay. I should make that achievement, let you go get the final revenge blow. Oh, yeah, I should get something for that, no troll. I thought I saw more items on the ground, which is what I'm running around for, but I can't see any. Must have just been these soapstone things. Have I beaten Bale? We have. Are you shocked? Yes. Wait, where's the guy? Do I have to talk to him again, or is he not there anymore? He's probably not there anymore. Back to the Dragon Katana place. Man, I was hoping I get to talk to him. Thank you guys, thank you. I should kill bosses more often. Alright. Oh, that was for the dragon. We can get rid of that. Yada! Fake Yada! That's what I said! I was like, oh my god, my fiance's name is Yada. But it's Yada with an L. So it's Yalda. She's gone. I have beaten Mesmer, yeah. No, Yada isn't his real name. Why is she gone? Is she meant to be gone? Did I somehow kill her? Okay, good. I get worried that I do the quest lines wrong. Okay. Am I meant to do something with those? Now I can achieve dragon blood. Yes. How do we do that? Am I meant to eat something? Don't say any spoilers. I don't know what happens. There's no way she called him Yada instead of his real name. I sometimes call him Yada instead of his real name, yeah. And I try to not. I'm not a namesayer, if that makes sense. So I don't say people's name often. So then, and because I will probably call Yada more often than his actual name, it's hard to switch. That's super cringe. I know! It's not because I want to. Use the heart. Guys, tell me what I'm meant to do. Use the heart. Is it the heart that I just picked up? The priestess heart turns human frame into ancient dragon and boosts dragon cult incantation. Is it a consumable? Is it something that you keep all the time? No. Get naked and turn into a dragon? That's so troll. Okay, well, we have to do this. Alright. Get rid of... Oh no, we're naked. So look! How do I use it? Do I have to equip it? Where would I equip it? Good question, how do I equip it? Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it. Okay, we found it. So many runes? Oh, really? I can't use it. Why is that? What am I missing? Do I have to get rid of my swords? No. You can't use it where you get it. Oh, I have to go somewhere else? Okay, can I go to the last place I was? It's because I'm in a safe zone. That's weird. Okay. So if I was to go here... I don't have to get rid of my sword, do I? Oh, okay, I can use it now. Oh, what's happening? I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna be bigger than what I am now. What the hell? This was not what I expected. What is this? Let me bring my finger sill back. Where is it? What the hell? And then what? Does this have an armor? Does it have defense? Can I go everywhere like this? You guys are like, it's so cool. They look so ugly. Oh shoot, where would Egon be? Oh, there's an item here. How have I not looked at this? Oh, it's Egon's cookbook. Interesting. It's where the two dragons fought. The two dragons fought. Oh, yes. No, not there. Here. Next to the wind tunnel? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, dragon cult incantations. I totally have that. Would it be from here? Is there another one? Because... How do you find out the armor stats? Did I find a dragon painting? I don't think so, actually. Unless I have and I didn't pay attention. Which is always a potential. here. From memory, he was around here, but I'm not too sure, to be honest. So I guess I'm gonna have a look. It's in the Shadow Keep. Oh, then I probably haven't. I think. I will have to go back to the Shadow Keep to explore further. One dragon encounter. Oh. Oh! Another one. There was another one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is the sleeping dragon. Yeah, okay. Did I go to the right or the left? That's right. That one was fairly easy. Maybe it's not this way. It might be up. So I'm sure I'll find it. I just gotta retrace my steps. Get my bearings. Yeah, it wasn't around here, so it had to be back the other way. I am wearing JBL headsets, so JBL does sponsor me. These are sponsored headsets. These ones in particular, the 360p. So they're PlayStation headsets, actually. But it comes with like a USB dongle. These ones are pretty good because I can wear them all day and it doesn't feel too heavy. So I like them for long-term wear. I have other ones that are better, like sound-wise and everything, and it lights up. But because they're heavier and they have a bigger battery, if I'm wearing them all day, sometimes it just like, it hurts my head. Does it have a microphone? It does have an attachable microphone. And it works. But I don't know why. When I use it on Discord, I've been having issues. So I've been trying to work with that. There is a software update, and I don't know if that fixes it. I haven't tried it yet. But it comes with a detachable microphone. Follow the pathway. Yes. Yeah, I prefer attachable as well. Can we see what the attachable microphone? Just turn it to a JBL sponsored bit. Here's the attachable microphone, and you just like attach it here, and that's it. That's all you do. And it's good if you have like this headset's good if you have a PlayStation. I need a headset with a mic and stuff. How much is it? It's actually not too bad. I'm gonna buy so many JBL products now. I do have a code for the JBL website. I don't get commission. It's literally just a code that gives you 20% off. And it's Divane 20. Would it work on Xbox? There's an Xbox one that's black. It's black and green. The PlayStation one is white and blue. I just needed to disclose, I definitely don't get permission on the code. Is it here? I know, like, what dragons you're talking about. I must have, like, I guess they just don't have a... Yeah, there's no dedicated grace for it. It's so far up. Oh wait, no, it's here. Okay, there's a grace here. So I probably went too far back. Yeah, I did. I thought it was back there. That's why that's what I thought. Oh, it's just how they do it. They do, like, I do get, like, it is a sponsorship. they do pay me in general, but they don't give me commission for the code. I've already fought Bale, by the way. Yeah, we are just we're trying to finish up the quest, essentially. Finally, yeah, I know, I recognize the place now. It's an item. Oh my god, it's his bow that he killed it with! No! Oh! No! Yeah, I will master it well. I never use it. Oh! Oh, he's bell bearing. Yeah. How poetic. I can't believe he got the last shot in mine. Like I thought I had killed him and the dragon was on 1 HP. And then he got it. Bear was thinking he was doing nothing. Yeah, give it to the twin-headed maiden. Okay, we can do that. We're gonna finish up soon, I guess. Yeah, well, I didn't realize there were NPCs that kind of relate to the story. I didn't know that either, because I always think like, oh, like, NPCs make it easier. Because I summoned the NPC for Messner. Because that's also related to the story. So I think if the summon thing is inside the boss arena, I think it's more story-based. Like it's a story-based NPC. I did, I killed Mesmer, yeah. And I summoned the thing in Mesmer. This is the wrong way, yeah, you're right. I always get lost with the two-headed maiden. I swear it was up here with the fingers, wasn't it? How much have you missed? I know, I killed the Mesmer. I killed the dragons. The 2 dragons! The dragon that I was stuck on. And Bale. Isn't us? No, this is the other lady. Okay, sorry. Ugh. The lady that died, but she still works. It's in Eden's office. Yeah, I just remembered the wrong place. After a bell bearing. So now what do I purchase? How do you know what I gave? Like, what do you get from that? What does he sell exactly? I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. It's a spear or something? Oh, that he sells? Egon's harpoon. Maybe. It's a great arrow. Interesting. Yeah, you get the arrows for the greats, for the bow. Yeah. And maybe it's for the dragons, when you're fighting the dragons. Yeah, I use bows all the time. Maybe one day I'll get into it. You never know. I haven't used a bow like this whole time. No worries. Xbox edition. Good. I hope they serve you well. If you get them. What bosses do you plan on doing next? That's a good question. I was just thinking about the other dragon. I'm gonna go to bed in like half an hour. So I'm gonna probably go do something that I've already seen and struggled with. Like, so there's these 2 here I haven't done. So I can maybe do those. The Xbox one should be called, the the 360X, I want to say. And it's Jovial Quantum. The Quantum range is their gaming stuff. Should I change my armor? I don't... As much as I love being a dragon, I don't know, what stats do I get on this? Is it good? How do you know? Like, I don't know if it's better or worse than... I guess we'll just fight. Let's try this bird thing. I have to fight with these individually. Kind of funny that you're a dragon wielding a dragon hunting weapon. This is irony, actually. Yeah. True. This thing here. We're 149. Yeah, I find these ones pretty affordable for what they are. Like, seriously speaking. Because I've definitely had headsets that were more expensive. And not as good. Either that or attack is just getting better. It's getting easier to make. How many paintings do you have? I don't think I have that many. How do I find out? Oh wait, I should put my stamina thing back on. Okay, this is doing so much better than my last weapon. Do I need to stress that I was struggling on this? This isn't even a dragon. I actually went like, I had like 20 goes on this guy. Ah, that's so annoying. Like, not even kidding. I struggled. When you killed the boss, you got the item, but it wasn't in your inventory. Wait, this boss? Wait, what item did it give? There are only 3 paintings? Oh, okay. I feel like I got 2. I got 2 paintings. How do I find out what paintings I have? The ghost flame incantation. Oh, I see here. Two legs, arms, and 2 wings. Yep, this is the dragon. It was just so much easier. Oh, okay. Check my inventory, right, for the paintings. Ashes, key item? Probably key items. Or info. Oh, here we are. So how do we know which ones we've had? Okay, so we've had the... No, these aren't paintings, are they? No, this is like info. This is like about blah blah blah. Is it these? I have 2. Which 2? Yeah, I thought I had 2. I remember getting up to 2. I really think I just leveled up and I got a better weapon and all that. You know, I really think that's all. I don't think I've significantly changed in terms of skill. But I probably got more used to the game, because before this I was playing Wo Long, very different playstyle. Who are we beaten? Well today we've just beaten Mesmer, that Asian dragon, Bale. All in like 2 hours. Insane. Okay, are we gonna go get the painting now? Do I need these paintings? I never thought they were important. Let me look at these, boat people. Romeo? Oh my god. Yeah, but that was earlier. That was in my previous stream. I guess I was just thinking about this stream. Maybe I shouldn't have used my summon for her. Alright, where is the boat? There must be a boat here. Maybe it's on the next one. Oh my god, what if it's a time-based thing? Do the boats only come at a certain time? No, there's one there. What am I talking about? I hate how they teleport. Where did it go? I also hate fighting this thing. That's why I left it. Alright, how useful are we here? Ooh, not very. Oh, I've got to change to my turtle. Oh. I thought I broke the... Oh, I do so much more damage to this. I barely did anything last time. Part of the reason why I gave up. Okay, cookbook. Great. Lovely. There was another one. We go back down. Let's change this for the turtle. Thoughts on soloing the next boss? Well, it depends. And before the next boss is the one that Oda was stuck on for like 3 days. It just depends. I feel like I'm happy to try and solo for 2 hours, and if it's literally ridiculous, that's when I start considering Tish, like summoning Tish. Its DLC has been so big that... Was there only one here? I marked 2. Because I thought there was 2. I would have sworn I saw more. At the same time. What build is that sword based around? Strength and dex. No, only one. Huh. I swear I looked down at that area and I was like, oh, there's 2 of them. God damn it. Really? Okay. Where is this painting? Maybe before I go to sleep. Have I been here? I don't think so. No! Yeah, it's not bleed. I mean, I might, actually. I don't know. How do I know? Because it's strength and dex. I don't think it's bleed, I don't know. I haven't seen any bleeds happening. Yeah, but it's... physical magic. Slash pierce. Causes blood loss buildup. That's a passive effect. Is that bleed? Can I walk through here? You can, okay. Yeah, Dex and String. Back to my roots. You know we can actually climb this thing? I thought I was going towards the worms, and this is not the worms, this is in fact a giant dragon that I don't see anything on top of. I don't know. Maybe there is something there. But I was going towards worms. Yeah, that's an item. Not an item. Over there, that way. Ooh, there's nothing here. Hidden grave. Okay. I'm actually not sure what bosses I have left. But I'm gonna be wrapping up the stream. I'm pretty sure I have, like, I definitely have one at least important boss. But there might be a few in between, I don't know. Okay. Maybe there was something in there, I don't know. Get rid of that too. There's something here and I haven't been here yet. Apparently. We don't need that. Take a look at Messmer's Remembrance. Messmer's Remembrance. What does his remembrance look like? Yeah. Take the power of its namesake via finger reader. So I can become Mesmer? That's not it. Oh, did I have to click it again? Is that not it? Oh, it's the Impaler. Mesmer the Impaler, is it not? Oh, okay, okay. Remember, sorry. Remembrance of Mesmer the Impaler. The power of its namesake, blah blah blah. The malevolent snake writhes within Mesmer, and so his very mother plucked out his eye and put it in his place, a seal of grace. Yet having done so, her fear compelled her to secret away her child within the realm of shadow, hidden away, keeping company with the original sin and a hatred that would not be combined. I'm not gonna take his power. I don't know, I think I was meant to read it. Yeah, I think I was just meant to read it. Oh, I'm probably gonna end stream here. Got an early day tomorrow, so I might as well. Alright, well, I wasn't expecting to beat all that, actually. But look at me go! How impressive.